and all. They should continue, they should continue. I'm sure over the years you've done your undergraduate work and you would have gone to classes and you would have been constantly assessing yourself to say, am I learning anything? Is this class making sense to me? And most times you make the decision after you've had a major assessment. If you did well, let us say you had a midterm test and you did well on the test, you say, oh yes, this class is making sense. I really like this class. But if you fail that test, you'll be saying, oh my God, I'm not doing well here at all. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And in some cases, you may be running around trying to drop the course because you don't think you're learning anything. But if the assessment is meaningful and it demonstrates that you're learning, then you will be more motivated to continue. So assessment is not just about the teacher, it's about the students as well. So that's a point I wanted to just raise very early. Students assess because the assessment helps them to identify students' strengths and weaknesses. Why would teachers need to identify the strengths and weaknesses of students?
Well, I would for sure want to know where my students are weak, so that I know which areas to focus on, to spend more time on, and also to pull out different students, probably have extra hours with them, etc.
Right. Yes. Okay. So that's for us. Then let's hear from. I know Dana is there. I also know Jessica is there. I saw Jessica earlier and Ophelia. Any comments from you guys?
Well, Rosen said it all. You would want to measure the students' learning to find out exactly where they are at. Have they grasped the concepts that you've taught? And also the strengths and the weaknesses of the students. You'd like to know which students actually are capable of grasping the content, and the weaker ones, that you have to spend more time, probably go back explaining, probably get extra materials for them to help them so they could get to where the other students are. Basically, that's it.
Okay, good. Thank you. That was from Jessica?
Dana.
Dana.
That's Dana.
Is it Dana? Is it Dana or Dana? How is it pronounced? Dana or Dana?
It's both ways. They say right. Dana, they say Dana.
Which one do you prefer?
Well, I use Dana.
Dana, great. All righty. It is also said that teachers should assess learners because it will help them to determine the effectiveness of a particular instructional strategy. Any comments on that view?
Yeah. Well, it speaks for itself. I mean, as a teacher, we have to use different strategies, and so through assessments, we can tell whether a particular strategy was more effective than another, and when we find out which one is more effective, then we just keep it. Those that are less effective, we drop them.
Right.
And yeah, right. Yeah.
So what's the purpose of assessing to find out if your strategy is effective? Why would you want to do that?
Well, I would want to do that because one of the things we learned in another course is that there are different intelligences. They are different children.
Right.
Some are more musically inclined, etc., etc. You all know its intelligences, and yeah, right, the multiple intelligences. And so, as teachers, well, as a teacher, I would want to be very effective in the strategies that I use, And then another thing I learned is that we have to know our students, know their level, and if we can know the different ways in which they can learn, that would help us to choose an effective strategy.
Okay. All right. So you have a repertoire of strategies, and you choose a strategy, and you will choose a strategy based on a number of factors. Children that are in front of you, the environment you're working in, the resources that you have, your ability to use the strategy well, and so on. And so based on those factors, you would want to assess to see if all of those conditions are being met. So in that way, assessment of the learners would be one way of determining if the strategy is effective. So yeah. To improve program effectiveness, and when we speak about program, that you could say class effectiveness or course effectiveness, depending on where you're teaching. You're teaching information technology in a high school. You want to know if, you would be following maybe your national curriculum, or you may be following the CSEC curriculum, depending on whether or not you're teaching in the upper school or the lower school. In the lower school, information technology would be taught via the government's curriculum. But we all know that once you get to grade 10, that you're going to be following the CSEC syllabi, right? Or syllabus. So because CSEC only provides a syllabus, your responsibility would be to take that syllabus and to turn it into a program. I'm not sure teachers realize that they're supposed to be doing that. So the syllabus is there for guidance, and you're going to use the syllabus to determine what kind of program you deliver. Once you've done that, you will need a mechanism to determine if your program is effective. An assessment will allow you to do that. Teachers should assess because it will provide data that assists in decision making about students' future. We not only teach learners, we also have to ensure that they progress through the system. Human beings don't remain in one place. You don't stay in grade 7 forever. You have to move along to grade 8, grade 9, and so on until you're out of the system. So teachers have to make a decision about, do we promote the student? Is the student ready for promotion? Should the student continue to do information technology, or should they choose a different option based on their inability to learn or their ability to learn? So those decisions are made based on assessment. Unfortunately, as we mentioned on Tuesday, those decisions are usually made using high stakes tests or more summative type testing. So the decisions that we arrive at may not be well informed. And so this class aims to broaden your notion of assessment so that you can, at the end of a term or a year, when you make a decision regarding a student's life in the subject area, you're making the best decision. So assessing your learners will provide feedback. You can provide feedback to parents on the progress of their student, their child, of their children. And it will also provide you, the teacher, with information about your effectiveness or ineffectiveness. Now, whether or not you're going to be self-reflective and very honest about the feedback is another matter, but it will certainly be providing you with those kinds of feedback. So today, I felt that I would revise what we did on Tuesday with those points. I think we covered them in different ways on Tuesday. And I also want to lay the foundation for what we're going to be covering today and next week, Tuesday, and next week, mainly next week. So there are 3 words that I want you to understand very clearly coming out of this course. And it is the ethos of the language of assessment, right? It really is the core of assessment. And so when discussing assessment component of teaching and learning, it is easy to confuse terminology. So persons use assessment interchangeably with measurement, interchangeably with evaluation. Some people talk about assessment and evaluation. Some people talk about assessment and measurement. But all these things, what do they mean? So I have pulled out these 3 words, and I've provided you with definitions that you should become familiar with. You should be able to explain these terms as going forward, because they're key terms that you're going to meet in the school environment every day once you're there. you must have been meeting them already, because I know you're, most of you are already teaching, and you should be able to understand what they mean. And for those who misunderstand them, you should be able to explain to them so that you all have the same meaning. So evaluation. That's when we talk about evaluation, we're really focusing on the subjective way of making sense of what was found out during assessment. All right. Let me pause there for you to digest and talk to each other. Ophelia, can you talk to Courtney about what that means to you? When the statement is that evaluation is the subjective way of making sense of what was found out during assessment. What does that mean to you, Ophelia? You're talking to Courtney, and Courtney is going to reply.
Okay, yeah, basically I think it is a way of making sense of what was found out during understanding this evaluation is just now. Okay, evaluating who, the lecturer, the teacher?
It's a statement that has to do with assessment.
Okay.
It is exploring what is evaluation. So the statement is evaluation is the subjective way of making sense of what was found out during assessment.
Okay, after you have assessed your students, you need to evaluate. Am I right? Courtney, am I right? What do you think about that?
You're throwing the ball at me. But I think in this context, it's more like, in my mind, it's students making an evaluation of the teacher rather than the other way around. Because, well, as you said, it goes both ways in terms of previous words. But I think for me, the assessment side of it would be more the teacher that, although we had said earlier that assessment is not just teacher-centric, it's also student-focused. But to me, the evaluation is a way or a means by which the teacher gets a feedback from the students. I'm not sure if in the other VUs, I use VUs. See with me, I'm coming out of the work.
I know we're all tired, so don't worry, I don't worry about that.
In the other sites, whether or not like the university provides a written evaluation form for students. Certainly, I don't know if it happening in the high school context. I've never really done one in high school, but I know at the tertiary level, usually when a course is taught, they generally have an evaluation form that is given to each student, and it's just basically a way of the student rating the teacher. So they will ask probably anyway routine 1 to 5 questions in terms of whether or not you assess the teacher as being effective and clear, whether or not the content of the material that was taught was effective or helpful to you, and if you'd recommend the course to somebody else. But as I say, that's more in a university context or tertiary level. I'm not sure whether or not it is widespread in the school system where students actually get that form to checklist the teacher, but you can tell me.
Okay.
But,
any other comment?
But I think that's evaluation in one way. To me, there's evaluation can be seen, like you said, first, the students can evaluate the teacher. And also I see it as after the students have done their part, then the teachers can evaluate them based on the results of the assessment.
Okay, I think we have some gray areas here. The statement is, evaluation is a subjective way of making sense of what was found out during assessment, all right?
Whose assessment? Because that's the thing.
Student assessment, yes.
So would it be the assessment?
So in a classroom, so measurement refers to the quantifiable data about specific behaviors. It involves a descriptive and objective process and is relatively free from human value judgment. So measurement is purely objective, right? And assessment is a relatively neutral process of finding out what students are learning. That was should be students. It includes objective data from measurement, but also subjective information that are derived from evaluation, right? So my next activity, I'm asking you, just get a piece of paper. No paper. Well, start with paper, but I want you to also get a Word file out because you have to share your results. You're going to use a diagram to demonstrate the relationship between evaluation, measurement, and assessment based on the definitions that are here. Use a diagram to demonstrate the relationship between evaluation, measurement, and assessment. Let's see what you come up with.
Okay.
I'm going to put an upload area for you to upload it. And please write a little summary of your explanation for the diagram below the diagram. And then you're going to either use a PowerPoint, one-page PowerPoint, or you can use a Word document. And then you will share screens as we continue. All right, so that's not a picky, that's not a long exercise, it's a quick exercise. I would expect you to be able to do the diagram in about 5 minutes. So you're not asking for much. If you draw the diagram on paper, you can perhaps just put it in front of the camera. Maybe we'll see it. We can try that. Otherwise, you can use the Word or PowerPoint to represent it.
I'm watching from down there.
I don't decide there. Jessica has no camera. Jessica? Okay. Did you text her?
Yes, she said she was on hold. So she should be there. She had some transportation issues.
Okay, so you don't have to put it in Word or PowerPoint because I want you to share your screens when I indicate that you should do so. You brought your computer and I gave you this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you ready to share your diagrams? Who's ready? All right. Can I see a few of the diagrams now? Just put up your hand. Indicate hands up when you're ready to do it, and share your screen. So I will have to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. So I'm gonna stop sharing for now. All right, go ahead, share screen. Ophelia, you seem to be. Your microphone is off. So are you sharing? Are you able to share screen, Ophelia? Ophelia? I'm not hearing her.
Yes,
All right, so you need to share screen. You need to share screen. I should be seeing whatever you're sharing instead of you. I'm still seeing you. So if you click on share, click on whatever you're sharing on your screen, and then click share screen, and it should work.
I didn't even use it.
You don't know how to use it?
No, you're breaking my head. I'm not understanding you correctly.
Should not hear anything. I'm saying, Ophelia, you can share your screen. So if you go click on the bottom, you see it's written in green, share screen.
Okay.
And then it's gonna show you everything that is on your screen, and you click on whatever from your screen you want to share, and then you click share screen again.
I'm not ready.
All right.
So should we log in on the thing for sharing screen?
No, you're gonna share here. Let's put it on a drive and share from here. All right. Or you want to go in as a student so you can share your stuff? You have to ask Danny to in. Oh, you have the ID? You have the meeting ID?
I think it's at the top of the screen.
All right. Yeah, do that. Is that, you know, sir?
All right, thanks.
All right. Anybody ready to share? What about Roslyn, Jessica, Dana, Courtney, Taylor? That's not here yet. You have a diagram to share?
All of the diagram that kind of couldn't sort it issue.
Oh, you're supposed to create one.
Must create
That's fine.
You know what I mean? Is I found one that kind of explained, so I wanted it to look
You
simple.
should create a diagram, not find a diagram. You should create a diagram.
Get those creative juices. All right, I will go to share mine.
Ready?
Lucky, lucky.
What about you, Roslyn? Do you have anything to share?
I didn't really draw something. I was trying something, then even notice I cut off her internet connection dropped, and then I have something, but I will call it a diagram. Can you hear me?
How did you do it? Yes, I'm hearing you, Roslyn. How did you do it? You drew it, or you have it on Word or in?
I was trying to do a PowerPoint, but I guess it's not complete. I was just, my own is not complete at all. What I drew basically, let me see if I can share.
Can you hold it up so we can see it?
Let me try to share. Where? I'm just trying. Where did I have that?
You notice I'm only showing my face because I'm wearing a checkered dress and it's gonna make your head hurt. So don't worry that you're not seeing my full.
I'm not seeing what to, I'm seeing certain things and oh, I see it. Okay. Are you seeing anything?
No.
No. Are you seeing anything?
Yes, Roslyn, I'm seeing it now. Yes, good, great
Well,
job.
I'm not complete, but it's not complete. I was just
But
doing
that's
some
not a
mistake.
diagram, is it? That's not a diagram, Roslyn.
Exactly.
You need a diagram.
Exactly. Right.
Do you use diagrams in Word?
Excuse me?
Even in PowerPoint, there is a set of tools that you can use to do diagrams.
Yes, I mean I know, but like I said, I was having some technical difficulties, and so I was trying to log
Okay.
in back to Zoom. And
All right, is there
but
anyone
is it
else that wants to share?
okay?
To get the ID. 733.
So far, Miss, I mean, we are supposed to show the relationship, right?
Yeah, between the three processes. Can
Okay.
you stop sharing yours now so someone else can?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do now.
Hello.
Stop
What do
sharing.
I do? Oh, stop share. Okay, I see it. All right.
Okay, try something.
Ophelia is gonna try and put something before the camera now.
I don't know if it makes sense, but I'm going to show it to you.
We won't put it. We're not.
Can you see
A
it?
little closer. Let's see if we'll see it.
I'm not hearing you very clear. You're breaking.
Put it a little closer.
Assessment, estimating skills, needs to evaluation, establishing objectives, classifying, finding, and
Are you able to see it?
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing it, but it's not as clear on my screen as it is on Thalia's screen. So that's your diagram. So you're saying testing.
Move it to the right.
Move it to the right.
Oh, you're right.
I'm not hearing what you're saying very clear.
Okay. All right. So you're using an organizational chart. I see that. Try to do that diagram in Microsoft Word of Ophelia.
Can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Share screen.
All right, so I'm seeing. All right, so how do you get this is you use a pyramid. So you're saying evaluation at the top, measurement at the bottom, and assessment at the base. Or are you saying that one? And are you saying it's hierarchical?
Well, in the sense, well, originally I think of using it as a cycle process, and then I changed it to pyramid. Don't know why, but in concept, to me, I think you basically look at the evaluation as a qualitative process. The measurement is pretty much quantitative. So as you said earlier, it's objective based, and then the assessment is a merger of both using a qualitative and quantitative means of gathering how they, because you see the student, for example, let's say you're looking at math, and the student may have done something and the answer is correct, but the process of deriving the answer is weird.
Right.
So throughout, so if you were just going on the measurement and so you're marking based on the correct answer, the person would probably get the mark, but then the evaluation would get, why is it that you do this way? What was the thinking behind you doing it?
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily get that from just looking on it from a measurement process. And so you'll be able now through the assessment process to both tie in the student's knowledge with how they are able to apply what they have learned.
All right, so I don't like the use of this.
The hierarchy.
The hierarchy, I don't like that.
You would prefer it in a
Venn diagram or something like that. I think the best way to represent this process would be in a Venn diagram.
This, I have a Venn diagram.
So can you share it?
Yeah, I have something on my screen.
Yes, it could be assessment.
Can you share? All right, so can you stop sharing so that
Can you see it on the paper? I'm trying to put it as close to the camera.
Razin?
No.
Yes, miss.
It's too close. It's too close. Move it a little bit.
Okay.
Can
you see?
That's it. And that is what I was expecting everybody to come up with. And
oh, wow. I was trying.
Jessica, put yours again.
I will share mine.
That's what I was trying to do, but you know.
Jessica used like a map, right? Whose is this? Dana? This is Dana, right? Yeah, Dana. Yeah, that can work. Jessica's can work. Dana's can work. Because assessment really is the overarching process. And it is made, so assessment is made up of evaluation and measurement, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's basically what the literature is saying. That it is. So assessment is a big up, which yes, Courtney, yours was showing it, but because they put it in a cone, like in a pyramid, the base means something, you know, and the fact that they're on top of each other, that means something as well. Yeah. So they really actually measurement and evaluation are two entities. They're not related, but the relationship comes in with assessment. So they are both a part of assessment, but they're not a part of each other. You understand the distinction I'm trying to make today?
Yes.
So measurement is not a part of evaluation. Evaluation is not a part of measurement, but both measurement and evaluation are key components of assessment. Yeah? You understand that? Yes. So I had to drive that point home. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna put a place in the site for you to upload these activities that you do. I think I did put one yesterday, but I put another one for today's work. Right, so let me go back to the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. So evaluation is a subjective way of making sense of what was found out during assessment. So whatever means of assessment that you use to find out how students are doing, what they're achieving, this is a subjective. This is when you're going to say, oh boy. Evaluation is when you actually look at the situation or you observe things that's happening in your class. So you taught a lesson. Did Taylor understand based on the diagram she produced? Does that demonstrate to me that she understands the differences between assessment process, evaluation process, and measurement process? So that's subjective because I'm looking at her work. I'm not collecting scores about Taylor's understanding of evaluation, measurement, and assessment. Right? I'm making a judgment, a value judgment based on what she produced. Does this show me that she knows what she's doing or she's achieving the objective that I intended her to achieve? Measurement refers to the quantifiable data about. So that's the test scores. Yeah? So the scores that you produce after you've given a test or an assignment, those are that's measurement you're dealing with when you start doing that. Assessment, though, must involve both evaluation, which is a subjective observation and so on of teacher and students, and measurement, that is the acquisition of scores based on tasks that students will assign. All right, so another set of vocabulary that I want you to become familiar with there are 3 types of assessment. So understanding that assessment is a broader picture now, I want you to understand that there are 3 types of assessment. Yes, on Tuesday we spoke about 2, formative and summative. But there's a 3rd type that I want you to zero in on, diagnostic assessment. No, we have done formative, we have done summative. What do you think diagnostic assessment is about?
Analyzing.
Jessica, I want you to answer that.
I think diagnostic means you searching for something specific.
All right, so diagnostic assessment means what then? Let's be more specific now. When we talk about diagnostic assessment, what are we talking about?
For example, if a child has some sort of disability, you would give them a test to test them for that specific disability.
To find out what the child is able to do before you treat them, right?
Yeah, yes.
All right. Yes, so diagnostic testing in the case of information technology would be the things that you do before class begins, before the term begins, to determine what your students know already, right? So that's about that diagnostic nature. So what are the things that you'd want to know? Let us say you have a grade 7 class. You've been assigned a grade 7 class, and you're going to be delivering the curriculum from the government. And on that curriculum, you have to teach them how to use Microsoft Word. What kind of diagnostic test would you give? How would you diagnose where they are in terms of their activity to do Microsoft Word?
Ask them to generate a document.
You're going to ask grade 7 students to generate a document? Do it. All right, continue.
Maybe ask them questions like, what is a word processor? Maybe depending on the platform that you're going to use at school, give them some sort of questions or diagrams to label different parts, because you want them to be able to boot up and log in and be able to get to the word processor, so that you know what you need to cover in class to get everybody to say they know what to skip over, because everybody already knows that. All right, so
the diagnostic test would check for things that they would need to know in order to learn word processing. So if you're going to ask them to develop a document in Word, then that's not diagnostic, that's formative, or that could be summative, right? Diagnostic is, okay, before they start learning how to use the word processor, you have to decide as a teacher, what is it that they need to know in order to come in and successfully use the word processor? Can you identify those skills, class? What students would need to be able to do in order to access the word processor and use it as you will be teaching them to do? What's the prerequisite skills? That's what I'm after, right?
Basic keyboarding. Basic keyboarding.
Basic keyboarding, yes.
Knowledge about turning on the computer, getting the word window going. So far, I'm blacked out. They should know how to start the computer for sure, how to open a Word program, how the different functions and keys, the different keys, what they are used for.
But I thought diagnostic test was to actually find out what level they are at.
Right. So in terms of the scenario I posed was that you got a brand new grade 7 class, and the curriculum requires you to teach them word processing. If the curriculum requires you to teach them word processing, there are some assumptions here that they don't know how to use word processing, right? So that's the assumption.
You're going to ask them basic questions.
You could ask questions, but you have to know what questions to ask. Identify the skills that you would want them to have before you begin to teach word processing. and which is what Dana identified. She said they would need to be able to operate the machine, the computer. They would need some to understand the basic layout of the keyboard, perhaps, or understand how a computer functions, right? So you would turn that information into a diagnostic type test, and you have your students do that test before you start your unit of instruction. Let us say at the end of doing whatever task you set up to assess what they know, you find out that there are students in the room that don't know how to turn on a computer. What would you do? What would that information help you to do? It means that you can't start a lesson at opening Microsoft Word. Exactly. You have to adjust your plan now to include a lesson that will bring the students up to the point where you expect them to be if they're not there, right? So the diagnostic assessment is very important, and it is something that we don't do a lot of. And so midway in your formative, you realize that, hold on a minute, the students can't do this X because they're missing Y, right? And then it's very hard to turn back at that point, so students get left behind. So summative assessment and formative, I'm sure you understand some way to move ahead. So just to revise what I just said, this process is used to determine the students' knowledge and skill level before they participate in instruction. So when you plan your lessons, don't just plan lessons to teach, plan lessons to check the skills that you expect students to have before they move on. So your lessons must have a diagnostic component to it, okay? It must have a diagnostic component to it. All right, so formative assessment is the process that teachers use to check what is being learned from instruction. And this is what we call continuous assessment as well. It involves continuous assessment. Formative assessment helps to shape instruction through repeated measures and provides the provision of feedback to students while they are engaged in learning. Let me just pause here a bit. Teachers seem to think that assessment is about them. It is to get you to be successful. Assessment is not just about your success. Assessment is about the student's progress. So if you constantly provide feedback to students about how they're progressing, they will progress. But if you assess them and then you use it to judge them and you use it to beat them, they won't progress. Because a learner who is feeling badly about him or herself cannot progress. Yeah? So the human factor must always be there. All right, so I'm going to go to the video now. Let me try this now. Yannick, can you just tell Tanik? I'm going to stop sharing this content so that I can share the video. Where is the video? Okay, this is it. I would have to share it first, right? All right, at the end of this video, we're going to take a break and then I'll come back. We'll come back and do the rest of the activity. Okay, it has to play from here. I know it's not big enough. Because I wonder if I could find the screen. If that's okay. All right, check something. I want to share the big video. It's already shared, right? So if I do this, stop that. I do this first. I do this first. That's the problem. All right, so I'm gonna share screen, share this. Share. All right, I'm gonna have to use this small screen because you stay. Okay, so here we go. Again, yes.
I wonder if they heard
They heard the video. Did you hear the video?
No.
No, I didn't.
No, we couldn't.
We couldn't hear anything.
That's what I hear. I wasn't hearing from down here. Oh, let me try again. Go back down here. That's how I was. Okay, let's go again.
We need a hand signal.
But you can use the chat. If you're not hearing, please indicate on the chat.
Take 2.
I didn't share.
Share screen.
Share this one.
No, it's not that one because that's where the link is, but the link took you to YouTube.
But there's this too.
Yeah, that's your.
Try this.
What's that?
Okay.
So here's the scenario. Take your car to the DMV, they do an inspection, and doesn't pass. Should they haul it off to the junkyard to be used as scrap metal? No. They give you feedback as to exactly what the problem is. And you're expected to take that information and go make improvements and come back. That's formative assessment in a nutshell. My research interest is to understand the effects of formative assessment on students. I'm particularly interested in using it in an online environment and how this impacts people who study mathematics. So why am I interested and what is the importance? Well, the first question we have to ask is, if paying attention to a teacher's day-to-day classroom assessment will pay off. Paul Black and Bill Williams read 700 journal articles on assessment. I narrowed that down to 250 as being relevant. And they looked at a small number of really good research studies that give the answer to this question. Does it pay off? The answer, yes. Let's consider this scenario, which has been done by several researchers, always concluding with the same general findings. We start with a sample of students, break our sample into 3 groups. One group gets grades only. One group gets comments only. And one group is giving grades and comments. Now, the researchers were interested in learning gain and interest in assessment. These were the dependent variables. So what do you think they found? The group that was given grades only showed very little or no learning gain, and in interest somewhat up and somewhat down. The group that was given comments only showed substantial learning gain, and it had a large impact on improving their interest. The group that was given grades and comments showed very little learning gain, and in interest somewhat up and somewhat down. What we need to understand here is that an assessment is only formative if it's used to modify the teaching and learning process. So if we just use assessments to get information and then enter that information into our spreadsheets, that's not formative. For example, if a teacher gets the students' assignments and gives them all grades, that's not formative. And as I described, that's actually bad to do because kids don't do anything other than say, I did well, I did badly, and that's the end of it. Now contrast that with homework where the teacher writes a few comments and then expects those students to work on those comments to improve it. And then they look at those comments afterwards. That's formative. In this case, homework becomes a positive part of the learning process. Now when we look at a tight experimental control pre-post test model, most educational interventions don't work. They may sound good, they may give people the warm fuzzies, but they show little or no effect. Formative assessment is one of the few that has been proven to be effective. Best of all, it can be done at very little cost. So what kind of improvement can we expect? Well, if we take the average improvement score on tests and divide that by the average score for a typical group of students on that same test, we have an effect size. Formative assessment experiments produce typical effect sizes between 0.4 and 0.7. This is huge, much larger than you would find in typical educational interventions. Let's start at the low end. Say we have an average student, Joe Snuffy, whose teacher starts using formative assessment. If our average student, Joe, has experiences on the low end of the effect size, 0.4, Joe would still end up in the top 35% of those not involved. Let's look at a 0.7 effect size. When they do these international comparisons between countries, the United States typically does poorly, especially in regards to mathematics. The formative assessment when used and the experienced at 0.7 effect size, we can expect to rise to one of the top 5 countries in the world. We know students who do well in school obtain higher levels of education and have a whole host of benefits, including making more money. It's been estimated that if students could have an improvement of 1 standard deviation in performance, the taxes on the extra revenue brought in from these students would pay entirely for the K-12 system within 30 years. So clearly we're playing for big stakes here. So the question I leave you with is, what would it take to convince you to start using formative assessment today? Thanks for your time.
Okay, great.
So, Katrina, tell me what you mean by formative and summative assessment.
Sorry. All right, stop sharing. Okay, so basically that I found that video online and I found a YouTube video that explained formative assessment well. The analogy you were saying, Taylor, you like the analogy?
I like the DMV, current DMV analogy. And hearing it the second time, I was trying to figure out why the person in the middle who was getting comments only was the one that adjusted the most, because I would have thought it'd be best of both worlds. It's the person that's getting the comments and the grades. But hearing it the second time, I was saying to myself, I wonder if the student responds strongest or best when they're getting what would have to be positive feedback, because then they're not feeling the judgment that comes along with a grade. So I only got a 75.
And
even if you're at the top of the class, you might go home and you have the kind of mother or father or auntie or uncle who's like, why I never get the 90? What happened to the 80? Why, what happened? You know, not, how do you think you can learn from that? And even depending on the level that you're at, the child themselves might be putting a different level of stress on themselves to get to a certain point or a certain GP or certain whatever numerical or letter grade, as opposed to, do I get this? Am I all the way there? Am I partly there? How is my understanding?
Right. So what then do you understand to be the role of formative assessment? Should formative assessment be a type of assessment that provides grades to students?
Based on that, I would say no.
Okay. Well, this is for everybody now. Come on, I want to hear you all.
14 comments on the chat.
Assessment is engaging your students.
Formative assessment.
I beg your pardon?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, you're here.
Yes, I was saying formative assessment is engaging your students. And that's how you evaluate them or assess them.
So finding ways to engage them and then assess their engagement to see what they have learned.
Right, like during observation, like questioning them, even in discussions.
Right. So is it now very important for you to give them a grade?
Yes, it is.
Is it important to give them a grade, or is it important to give them feedback on their performance? And those feedback will be a grade.
Both of them is important, but I think the feedback is more important, because when you give them the feedback, then probably they'll get the impression that, or they're supposed to get the impression that they can do better. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think based on looking on the video, when they used the analogy of the 3 students, they found that the one that got the grade, no grades, pretty much wasn't motivated. Those that got both grades and feedback didn't make much difference either. So I would say that in the context of the video, the grade is not as important. It's more the feedback that drives the performance based on the video. But I suppose based on our culture and the expectation of parents and others, the grade would come in as one of the thing that people tend to go off.
Let me just share a scenario that you're a part of. So you came to class on Tuesday, and we did I introduced you to the principles of assessment. I used an activity to do a formative assessment of your understanding and your achievement based on the presentation and the lecture and the focus of the objectives that I had for Tuesday. Did I assign you a grade?
No.
Not that we know of.
Was it formative in nature in terms of the assessment task that you did?
Yes, it was.
So you were not assigned a grade, but how did you feel about the task when you did it? Did you feel threatened by it? Did it help you to understand the concept?
Of sharing and creating, that was it.
So what did it do for your understanding? Did it help you to
Yeah, because you had to understand it in order to express it to somebody else to help them to understand it.
Dana, what did you do? Dana, what did you do when you came up with your point?
Well, first I had to understand the information that was presented to me. And in understanding it, then I could have let my creative juices flow and explain it so that you could understand what was being said in the class.
If I had assigned a grade to the task, what would have happened to you, Dana? Would you have, what do you think would have happened?
Well, that depends on the grade.
So would you be running down the understanding or would you be running down the high grade?
Well,
You mean top level grade, not the high grade.
What would have been your focus? If I said, okay, this has a value of 10 points, what would have been your focus then? Would it have been on understanding and creativity?
It would not have, honestly, it would not have been understanding. It would have been working for the grade.
Exactly.
Right. So you need to, and there's a reason why I'm taking you through this process. I want you to understand what is happening in school and what should be happening in school. And we're going to get to our subject area, but I want to lay the foundation really well. So when we move on, we're moving on with the same understanding. We are in a high-stakes testing environment. I know Courtney wants to say something. I'll call on you shortly. We're operating in a high-stakes testing environment. I have heard of schools in Jamaica where every month the teacher has to provide a test grade for every child for information technology. Yeah? I've heard of scenarios where there's a weekly test every week and a grade has to be provided for every child. That is not formative. What that is repetitive summative. Okay? So formative assessment either comes it could come at the end of a month. But is it legal to do that? Because the ministries of education across the region have determined that a semester or a term has 3 months. Summative assessment comes at the end of 3 months. Summative assessment is usually entails measurement, right? And it's highly quantitative. It's very objective. Formative assessment is very subjective. So it is based on trying to get persons to demonstrate in front of your eyes and for you to judge their ability to perform a task. When you add summative elements to that, you create a problem. Yeah? This learning stops and the focus becomes you're judging me. Why? You're going to judge me, so I have to. Yeah? So learning becomes very mechanical when you do that. I'm asking you, I know it's going to be a struggle for you, when you go back into your schools with this qualification, to start the conversation about the nature of formative diagnostic versus formative and summative assessment. You need to operate within that framework. So you need to understand what approaches you're going to take for your diagnostic testing, and you need to understand why you're doing it, right? What approach are you going to take for your formative, and why are you doing it? And what approach for the summative and the purpose that it will serve, right? So if you are doing the 3 types of testing, there's no reason to be acquiring a grade for every assessment activity that you perform. Some of it, the majority of it, the ones that will come during instruction, is a part of instruction because it helps you to figure out if your learners are learning. Yeah? There's no need to assign a grade to it. What you need to do, though, is to provide feedback, meaningful feedback, so they get a sense of their progress. All right. So having done that, I'm gonna take a break now. When you come back, we're gonna be working on the information technology curriculum syllabus, CSEC. I have it on my desktop to upload. When you come back, you're gonna be going through it. You're gonna be taking out the specific objectives. You're going to be setting up diagnostic tests. You're gonna be setting up formative tasks and summative tasks. So we're gonna do a bit of that when we get back. But go have your lunch. You have 30 minutes lunch break. You'll be back at 5:15. Okay? So I'll see you then. So when you get back, we're gonna work on alignment of objectives from the CSEC information technology syllabus for 1 unit. You're gonna do alignment, and I'm gonna assign the unit across groups. So you're working in pairs as usual, all right? But I'll have that activity set up for you when you get back. So we're focusing on diagnostic, formative, and summative. And I'm going to be uploading a template for you to work in, okay? So I'll see you after lunch.